Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to Wednesday, August 20th teasers for The Young and the Restless, Billy Abbott will make an irate demand while Audra Charles will blame Kyle Abbott. There will be a lot going on in Genoa City since Tessa Porter will also entice Daniel Romalotti Jr. Billy will first criticize Adam Newman and Chelsea Lawson more in Wednesday's YNR show. This might entail more media assaults or possibly the partnership that Nick Newman is currently seeking with Kane Ashby. In any event, Billy will become enraged and demand additional details. Daniel will have a different perspective on Tessa. Although Daniel has been showing genuine affections for Tessa, Wednesday's show might make him even more attracted to her. Daniel might be tempted to tell Tessa how he feels or to kiss her, but will he take any risks? In any case, when they spend some intimate moments together, Daniel will have to resist some Tessa temptation. Then, with all the turmoil surrounding Kyle, Audra will attempt to turn the tables. Audra will act as though Kyle is the one who can't keep his hands and lips to himself, accusing Kyle of coming onto her once more. Claire Newman visits Nate Hastings to tell him everything about his girlfriend's activities, which could lead to Audra playing the blame game. Claire will be keen to reveal Audra's attempt, at Victor Newman's instigation, to blow up her romance. Claire will get ready to share some shocking information with Nate, who also needs updates on the kiss Audra planted on Kyle at Society. Even if Audra tries to avoid the repercussions of her actions, her strategy will ultimately fail. Their relationship is doomed to fail because Nate will put Audra in a difficult situation before the week is out and demand the complete truth. According to teasers on The Young and the Restless, Audra should be filled with regrets now that she has some bad news regarding her own romance on the horizon. Even though Audra had been suppressing her doubts for weeks, she couldn't get rid of the notion that Kyle was against her the more she saw him dodge her with that cunning smirk and those half-truths. Not all of it was business. It was intimate. Kyle had a way of eroding her, sliding in jabs that, although innocuous to others, gradually eroded her pride. Before the contradictions began to mount, she had convinced herself that she was exaggerating and that perhaps she was being overly suspicious. Emails that vanished, last-minute contracts, and meetings she was unaware of until the last minute, all of them were inconspicuous enough to be dismissed as coincidence, but taken as a whole, they established a pattern that was too intentional to overlook. And betrayal disguised as teamwork was the one thing Audra Charles could never stand. One late afternoon, she went to the Abbott estate, which she knew was Kyle's bastion of entitlement, and confronted him. He sipped a bourbon while comfortably resting against the bar cart, as if the world's weight had never touched him. Her blood simmered at his audacity. "Don't you think you're smart?" As she walked across the room, her heels resonating against the hardwood, she snapped. With that frustratingly composed, almost amused face, Kyle looked up. "Audra is always enjoyable. Would you like a drink?" His slick, contemptuous tone just made her anger worse. "You look like you could use one," he said. She snapped, "Don't play games with me. I am aware of your actions. You're undermining me with the rescheduled meetings and the missing contracts." She spoke with the rage of someone who had finally had enough, not with weakness, but with the words, "You're trying to make me look incompetent, and I'm not going to stand here and let you get away with it." With a raised eyebrow, Kyle took a long sip of his glass before putting it down. "That's a daring charge, even for you. Perhaps you're making mistakes on your own. Everybody makes errors. But accusing me? That's handy, isn't it?" She wanted to hit him because of his arrogance. She took a step forward, her voice lowered but her words sharpened. "You don't think I can see how you're trying to get the upper hand? Kyle, you don't care who you trample to gain control. You want it. But let me be clear, if you try to come for me, you had well be prepared for the conflict that will ensue. For a split second, a flash of seriousness that he was unable to conceal appeared in his eyes. Then it was gone, that abbot charm taking its place. War? He said it again, almost laughing. Audra, you give yourself too much credit. However, if you're searching for adversaries, I believe you've discovered one in yourself. There was a stifling tension between them, the kind of charged energy that, with one wrong move, could destroy everything. With her heart racing, Audra bounded out, certain that Kyle was planning to harm her and that she would stop at nothing to prove it. She was unaware that her charges had sparked a potentially harmful reaction in Kyle. Her words had touched a nerve despite his casual demeanor. He was aware that she would soon discover what he had been doing behind closed doors, therefore he would need to play even dirty to keep his secrets safe. Another storm was forming in Genoa City while that fight was brewing. It was calmer on the surface but just as destructive. For weeks, Daniel Romalotti had been having difficulties. On paper, his relationship with Lily was strong, but recently, it felt strained. He was restless because of the burden of his previous errors, the demands of his artistic endeavors, and the nagging doubt that followed him everywhere. Tessa Porter, with her captivating energy and the kind of attraction that sneaks up on you when you least expect it, entered that restlessness. The temptation began innocently enough, as most do. Tessa had been discussing a charitable endeavor with him, her eyes glimmering with enthusiasm as she explained the idea. Daniel enjoyed that fire because it brought back memories of the person he was before responsibilities wore down his edges. With notebooks strewn across the table, they sat in crimson lights, their heads hunched over as they discussed ideas. He hadn't felt it comfortable with Tessa in a while. She seemed to see aspects of him that Lily didn't always get. After a lengthy brainstorming session one evening, Tessa leaned over and held his palm without realizing it. It was a tiny gesture, but it had enough power to throw Daniel into a tailspin. He swiftly withdrew his hand to cover up the surge of heat coursing through him, but she could see it. He briefly questioned whether she was aware of what she was doing as her lips formed the tiniest smile. Long after he left the cafe, that moment lingered in his mind like a ghost. He kept playing it back to himself, wondering if it was something innocent or something much more sinister. When Tessa started talking to him about her personal problems, such as how difficult her marriage to Mariah had become due to the duties of parenthood and how she occasionally felt invisible in her own home, the temptation increased. Daniel, who had always been drawn to sharp edges, felt compelled to console her in ways that went against his moral convictions because of her vulnerability. He convinced himself that it was only companionship and support, but he knew deep down that he was on the verge of doing something dangerous. Chaos in Genoa City was set up by the contrast between the two plotlines, Audra battling Kyle to the death and Tessa luring temptation into Daniel's restless heart. Because nothing remained buried for long in this town. No matter how nasty it got, Audra was determined to expose Kyle, and Daniel was teetering perilously near a secret that may ruin his relationship with Lily and undermine Mariah's faith in Tessa. Each interaction brought them closer to the breaking points from which they were unable to recover. Late into the night, Audra combed through documents in an attempt to find evidence of Kyle's treachery, while Kyle considered using seduction as a tactic to divert her attention and allay her concerns. Daniel, who was uncomfortable with himself, started looking for reasons to visit Tessa. He told himself it was because of the project, but it was really because she gave him a sense of purpose again. The stakes increased, the lines became hazy, and Genoa City was alive with rumors of betrayals that were just waiting to be exposed. Human dramas are performed with a Shakespearean intensity in the expansive, sun-drenched suburb of Genoa City, which is caught between the gloomy intrigues of personal grudges and the ambitious sparkle of corporate buildings. Relationships are the main currency in this environment, and the most powerful weapon is the ability to manipulate them. Though different in their specifics, these two plotlines, Audra accuses Kyle and Tessa tempts Daniel, serve as insightful parallel analyses of perception, truth, and the destructive force of accusation in the intricate web of contemporary relationships. They are more than just narrative points, they are in-depth examinations of how one accusation, whether the result of deliberate malice or a desperate attempt to protect oneself, may tear apart the foundation of family, identity, and trust, leaving a legacy of uncertainty that endures long after the initial crisis has passed. The conflict between Audra Charles and Kyle Abbott is a prime example of both personal and professional combat, where the romantic and the professional are dangerously and irrevocably entwined. In order to comprehend the accusation, one must first comprehend the accuser. Audra is an ambitious woman who has succeeded in the competitive fields of public relations and media not because she was born with privilege but rather by pure willpower, cunning, and a sometimes brutal grasp of human nature. Her relationship with Kyle was never only a romantic one, rather, it was a strategic partnership between two driven individuals working for Jabot Cosmetics, a corporation that is itself torn by the ongoing Abbott-Newman rivalry. Their relationship was based on a common aspiration to construct a kingdom for themselves, frequently against the will of the established order, which Kyle's father, Jack, and his strong aunt, Diane Jenkins, represented. The charge that Audra makes is never clear-cut and uncomplicated. It is a weapon used with accuracy, and its strength comes from its plausibility in the particular circumstances of their relationship and work environment rather than from its exact veracity. Usually, the accusation focuses on a betrayal of trust, a unilateral business decision, a secret hidden, or a perceived connection with a hostile faction, usually the Newmans, that compromises their common objectives. Audra is brilliant because she presented her charge as an unbiased evaluation of Kyle's shortcomings rather than as a personal gripe. Instead of saying "you hurt me," she adds "you are weak, you are incompetent, you are a pawn, and you are betraying our shared vision." This rephrasing is incredibly powerful. It targets the very essence of Kyle's identity. He always struggles with the heritage of his last name as an Abbott, yearning to be regarded as a leader rather than an heir. This insecurity is the direct target of Audra's accusations. She holds up a mirror so he can see the indecisive son, the disloyal spouse, and the ineffective strategist instead of the strong executive he wants to be. Kyle is immediately and viscerally affected. He becomes quite defensive and self-conscious. Because a part of him worries that she might be correct, his response is an intriguing mix of rage and reflection. Such a well-crafted charge has the pernicious quality of having a kernel of truth, albeit a warped one. He might have hesitated before making a choice. Maybe he did say anything to Summer or his mother that would have been interpreted as treachery. That kernel is expanded upon by Audra into a comprehensive account of his failure. The dispute shifts from being about a single deed to becoming a referendum on his entire personality. Their discussions are existential struggles rather than fruitful disagreements, waged in penthouses and offices with the high stakes of personal legacy and company authority at risk. Their trust, which was already brittle due to their common tendency to plot, is totally destroyed. Every subsequent statement, look, and business decision is viewed through the prism of this charge. It poisons their closeness by substituting a persistent, exhausting vigilance for affection and paralyzes their working partnership by entangling strategic decisions and personal recriminations. The delicate and far more nuanced dance of Tessa tempts Daniel occurs simultaneously, but in an entirely different emotional tone. If Audra's accusation is a disorganized discharge from a corporate cannon, Tessa's temptation is a slow-acting, delicately administered poison. Daniel Romalotti and Tessa Porter's relationship is based on a shared history of artistic enthusiasm, psychological turmoil, and a profound, nearly soulful bond. They are similar in that they are both creative, have had hardship in the past, and find a sense of understanding in one another that they frequently do not have elsewhere. Daniel, who is a talented graphic writer and the son of a fashion icon and a musical great, battles the demands of authenticity and expectations. As a singer-songwriter, Tessa's work is driven by intuition and intense passion. Seldom is her temptation an overt or malevolent seduction. It is far more harmful because it is much more subtle. Instead of offering Daniel cash or power, Tessa entices him with something much more appealing to his creative spirit, acceptance, understanding, and a return to a more passionate, pure version of himself. Daniel is tempted during vulnerable times in his life, such as when he is having a creative block, when he and his girlfriend, often Lily Winters, are at odds, or when he is having philosophical questions about the course of his life. In these situations, Tessa manifests as a serene harbor rather than a storm. She communicates in the emotional and artistic language he longs for. He feels genuinely noticed by the way she listens. She supports his artistic endeavors without the tacit misgivings that a spouse like Lily, who is firmly rooted in the business world, may unintentionally display. This temptation is a silent accusation in and of itself. Daniel's current life is accused of being business, uninteresting, and restricting his artistic abilities. It charges that there is no genuine creative spark or depth in his steady partnership. Tessa doesn't have to say anything negative about Lily because his artistic inspiration alone establishes a strong, implicit contrast. Tessa's temptation is a charge directed against Daniel's surroundings and, consequently, his decisions. It implies that he has made up his mind and exchanged his true self for a cozy but ultimately unsatisfying existence. Because it speaks to the deepest concerns of each creative person, this attack is incredibly powerful. Unlike Kyle's violent altercations, Daniel's struggle is internal and silent. He is caught between the strong siren pull of a destiny that feels more like him and his love and loyalty for Lily and the life they have created together, a life of family, business, and responsibility. He is forced to accuse himself because of Tessa's temptation. He starts to doubt his own decisions and level of enjoyment. Is he merely going through the motions, or is he actually happy? Is he too busy to continue working on his graphic novel, or has he lost the enthusiasm that drives it? Here, trust is undermined not so much in his partner as it is in his own judgment and life story. In his view, his relationship security turns into a cage, and temptation provides the key. It's a psychological breakdown, a silent identity crisis that is just as damaging as the loud, business-related collapse between Kyle and Audra. These parallel stories are brilliant because they examine motivation. The accusation made by Audra is essentially instrumental. It serves a purpose, to regain control, to punish a perceived betrayal, or to have the upper hand in a power battle. It is extroverted, focusing its energy on controlling and influencing the environment. Her rage or pain is genuine, yet it is directed toward a calculated attack. But Tessa's temptation is frequently expressive. It originates from an authentic relationship and unresolved emotion. Although her acts may be harmful, they are often motivated by the conviction that she and Daniel were destined to be together and that their bond is more genuine than anything else in their lives. She is attempting to live out her destiny as she perceives it, not to win a fight. This places the deed in a totally different emotional soil, but it doesn't remove it from its repercussions. One is a deliberate tactic, while the other is an emotional appeal that is powerful but misplaced. Additionally, there are significant differences between the aftermath and resolution of these two kinds of charges. The consequences of Audra and Kyle's conflicts frequently call for a definite winner and loser. When a resolution is reached, it is usually mediated by a new business agreement, a change of alliances, or the involvement of a strong third party, such as Jack or Victor Newman. This settlement is political. Once lost, trust is nearly impossible to rebuild on a personal level, and it frequently results in a partnership that is redesigned solely for cold, pragmatic business purposes or a permanent separation. The charge demonstrates the transactional nature of the bond and its vulnerability. The route is more messy and introspective for Daniel and Tessa. It's never a straightforward business transaction. For Daniel, it entails a torturous process of introspection. He needs to face the aspects of himself that gave into temptation. He has to choose between the love and stability of a committed relationship and the passionate, deep, but frequently tumultuous, bond of an artistic soulmate. He needs to rebuild his faith in himself as well as in his spouse. Can he once more have faith in his own judgment? Is it possible for him to incorporate his artistic interests into his secure existence without feeling as like he is sacrificing one for the other? For Tessa, finding closure frequently means facing the self-centeredness that drives her behavior and realizing that her faith in a predestined bond does not grant her the authority to ruin someone else's life. Their narrative focuses on the challenges of emotional honesty and the tough decisions needed to either start over or let go. Audra accuses Kyle and Tessa tempts Daniel are crucial, opposing strands in Genoa City's vast fabric. They demonstrate that an accusation can be destructive even if it is not a precise, factual allegation of conduct. It may be a silent invitation to betray one's own path, a critique of character, or a reconsideration of life decisions. These plots show that internal conflicts over identity, purpose, and self-worth are more deadly than those fought over external things like businesses or inheritances. They illustrate how relationships are inherently characterized by a blurring of perception and fact, and how the stories we tell about one another, and, most significantly, about ourselves, have the ultimate capacity to either strengthen or weaken a bond. Both stories ultimately serve as timeless tragedies of human connection, serving as a reminder that the most personal betrayals frequently start with the weaponization of the truth rather than the telling of a lie, and that the strongest temptations are not those that bring pleasure but rather the promise of a return to a version of ourselves that we fear we have lost.